All right, folks, I'm Christopher Heimerman, writing stories for the Illinois Press Association, and we're adding to our offerings now with some video chats as part of our Made in Illinois series, in which we spotlight some fast risers in the industry who either grew up in or went to school right here in Illinois. Today, we have a very special guest. We've got Ariel Parrella-Aureli, who I met a few years ago while speaking at a college journalist conference. Ariel, it's so great to see you again. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you for having me. I know it's been a couple years, right? I don't remember, was it 2016? It must have been 2016 or 2017, but either way, yeah, it's good to see you again.
Yeah, I remember talking about, extolling the virtues of journalism and trying to offer some tips. Hopefully some of those were helpful.
Yes.
I immediately identified that of course, the kids who are in that room are invested in it. They believe in journalism, but it was immediately evident that, you had the passion for it. And since then, my goodness, the industry has changed so much. Why don't you kind of catch us up on what it was like to be a leader at the Columbia Chronicle, and then where your career went from there after you graduated?
Oh gosh, let's see. Okay, I have to think back to college years, which now feels like forever ago.
Mm-hmm.
Leadership at the Chronicle was, a great experience to get that kind of, hands-on experience to then propel me into Chicago. That definitely helped me learn what I wanted to write about. I started off at the arts and culture desk, and then did a lot of obviously arts and culture, but also some metro stories that helped me get to know Chicago's issues, landscape, people, neighborhoods, you name it. And many of my friends started off there and now are my colleagues, doing really great things. And so, yeah, it was like a really special place. It was also a bubble, and that's just how it is. But it also pushed me to definitely like learned a lot. Some of the things that come to mind are things like work ethic, or deadlines. Like I love deadlines. I think that that's what helps me kind of keep it going. And those simple things have really just like helped me become the journalist that I am today. It was a while ago. What was the second part of the question?
You graduate, and then did you get a gig directly out of college?
I started working at WBBM News Radio as a part-time digital content producer. So I was there for, I want to say 2.5 years. So I graduated in 2017, got that job. So it was part-time, which allowed me to freelance on the side while doing that. And then my freelance just took off. And so I left that job in November just of 2020.
Okay.
So now I'm a full-time freelancer.
It's wild that's where the gig economy has brought us. Was there a point where you realized that this was no longer going to be an industry in which you worked somewhere 25 years and got the gold watch?
Right.
Was there a moment where that became clear to you, that you actively began figuring out, okay, BBM full-time, probably not going to be a thing. A lot of this isn't sustainable. I need to diversify and find my way as a full-time freelancer?
Yeah, definitely a thing that I think about. And I think now I'm like finally happy with where I'm at. I think that moment was maybe like late 2019. And that was at a time when I was I was working at BBM, but also like making a lot of connections with editors who either I knew from Columbia or just from writing and reporting. And that was a time when I realized, like, I don't want to leave Chicago. I don't want to leave journalism. There are no full-time jobs right now, I just can't get any full-time jobs. So I'm going to keep freelancing. And like, the more that I hustle, the more that, and I think it's such a cliche phrase, but like, I don't know exactly what it is, but something like, the more you do it, the more like you get noticed, or like you just got to keep doing it. And it just like, sometimes it just feels like you're like, my metaphor always is like trudging through mud. Like things just like feel so hard to like walk through. But like once you can like get through that, and like then you're kind of swimming in water, it's like not as hard. It's like, it is cliche, but it's like you gotta like go through that part to then realize, oh, okay, I can do this. So, I think to answer your question, I think it was like late 2019 or maybe even 2020 when I just like was pitching every day, and then it kind of turned into a place where I was getting commissioned to do a lot of stories, which just like speaks to the like constant hustle that I was doing, and just like meeting all of these editors who now I work with all the time.
So how many like total publications or outlets do you work with consistently
now? 4.
Okay.
So yeah, so my main one is Block Club Chicago,
which is fantastic. I absolutely love Block Club.
Yes, me too. And so many Block Club folks came from Columbia or the Chronicle, and so that's actually where I met the editor-in-chief there, Seamus. I met him at Columbia, and so connections in college like really do matter, and I'm so grateful to him and the whole Block Club team. So then I also write for The Reader, which I also kind of got through connections through Columbia, and also TTW, which was like a recent addition, I would say, like from like September of 2020. I just did a really big project with them. They do this series called Firsthand every year that explores a lot of either social issues, excuse me, that happen in Chicago, kind of in different categories, big things like gun violence or poverty, or in this case, coronavirus. And they tell the story through like the first person narrative of someone who's at least in this case, overcame these obstacles. And it was like one of the longest like feature pieces that I worked on. It took like 4 months, which is crazy, but yeah. And then Eater Chicago is the other one that I like write for regularly.
No, I've seen your byline come up in other places though. Like for instance, one of the pieces in your reminiscing thread on Twitter, which people should check that out, was the piece that you wrote on the bringing down of the Christopher Columbus statue.
Oh yeah.
the insider piece. Tell me about that experience and sort of this case in point of what came first, the work that you were doing, that you were able to do something for Insider, or how does that play out that you end up getting to work for Insider?
Yeah, I forgot about that one, but that one's definitely like a big accomplishment for me, because obviously it's Insider, and like the Columbus statue was like such big news for Chicago, for the country in summer. So I have a great friend who's also a freelancer who had worked with Insider. So going back to connections, it's all about who like he hooked me up with the editor there. And so that was interesting just because there was so much media there. Like it was such a fun night, and kind of crazy just to experience it. And, the statue went down at like 3 a.m. and we were all waiting there for like 5 hours. And I didn't really know who to pitch it to, but I already like knew of the editor, and my friend was like, just try pitching to her, like I'll connect you. And so thanks to him, I was able to get that piece there in Insider. And I actually got another Insider piece about the Count Every Vote rally right after the election, November 4th downtown. Again, was like very much like an Insider piece, very Chicago focused, but like very national and political with what's happening. And so that one I just like didn't end up sharing just because there was so much news going on. But yeah, so that was exciting, and definitely kind of like okay, I can do this. I can, like it takes a lot of work, but like I can do this, and a lot of other people do it too. And having the editor, she already had worked with me before, so she was like, yeah, go ahead, do it. Like I just reached out to her and I was like, this is happening right now downtown. Do you want a story? And she was like, yes, please. And it was that simple, which is sometimes crazy how simple it can be.
It is. It's such an uncertain thing, I have to think. You have the long-standing relationship with, you mentioned that there's 4 entities. In
Yeah.
those, let's take those for a moment. In those relationships, because I know there's a lot of people who are wondering how feasible it is to do this and how to do it. Frankly, kind of the, let's do the paint by numbers. How do people become a full-time freelancer?
Yeah.
So those four outlets, how does it work? Do they send you ideas? Are you pitching them all the time? The ones that you're more consistently working for, how does that flow?
I would say it's a balance of both. I mean, especially we all know how crazy the world's been for journalism and just how much news there has been recently. I was getting a lot of stories from Block Club and like for TTW, I was freelancing on the weekends before doing that big project. And so that was great because I could just come up with my own story ideas but like still be kind of on the clock on the weekend to do these pieces. So yeah, I would say it's a mix of both. It's like, it's hard to just put them, in their own kind of buckets. But yeah, like it's a mix of both. I mean, lately it's been more editors asking me to do pieces, which is a great thing. And yeah, I mean, same with Eater Chicago. There's a couple of pieces that I have pitched and then like they've kind of developed into a bigger feature that, my editor has helped me craft. And then like one I'm working on right now is one that he gave me because it's timely with Chinese New Year coming up in February. So yeah, it's a bit of both, and I'm really grateful for that.
And for the others that you've had a chance to write for it, like, do you feel like you're in a mode where you're constantly trying to make inroads and develop more opportunities to write, or that you're trying to like earn future gigs from like an insider per se, where it's like, okay, I wrote this awesome piece for you. It had a great reaction. I want to keep working with you. How does it go in terms of fostering more opportunities and relationships, but also being conscientious of your limited bandwidth? Because if you get too many plates spinning, you don't ever want to like overpromise and underdeliver. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's kind of a tough question because I'm like, I never say no to an assignment, of course. And, I've like, recently I said no to one and I was like, oh my God, I just said no to my first assignment. But, my editor's great. Like she understood it because I was working on another piece for them. And like, I think it's like, I'm finally at that place where I do have to remember like what I already have on my plate before accepting new work. So yeah, it's a tough question because I think right now I'm at a place where I do want to expand and do more national pieces like the Insider one. And, I got a really great one too that you might have seen in the reflection thread for Latina USA, which is like my favorite, like POC podcast show. And like Maria Hinojosa is like one of my favorite journalists and I've interviewed her and like we know each other. And I like want to get more into that space and like into the national space, I guess. But yeah, I am so ingrained in the local community that I like know my place is here for right now. And because I'm so busy with that, it's hard to pitch bigger things. But I guess like to kind of answer your question, like the road that I am going on is like just finding more opportunities and like finding like expanding my like my beats as well, but also like knowing like what kind of what I'm good at, like where my realm is, because I can also dig deeper into that. And I have some friends who do really well with writing like 10 beats kind of thing, and then I know that there are like some people like that's maybe a bit too much for me personally, but also like it also makes you a really, really well-rounded journalist, especially as a freelancer. Then, you can just kind of grab and go as you please, or as editors, put calls out or whatever it might be.
I hope that you don't have any more experiences on the I got hit by a car while riding my bike beat.
Oh God. Yeah.
That was emotional, huh? I mean,
yeah.
A lot of the stuff you're writing about is emotional, but I mean, that was unique where you actually had the personal experience to write from.
Yeah, which I think that's strange too, is I think me and some other of my journalism friends are always like, I don't want to write about myself. I want to write about everyone else who's doing amazing things in our community. And for me, that was a moment of like, well, I have a story to share, and like, why would my story be less valuable than, Jessica next door or something? So like, there was a weird, like, at first I didn't really like want to write it, and it was very emotional to write, but also, again, thanks to my editor at Streets Blog, he was like, yeah, no, you should do this, you should write it. And because I knew, obviously, with words and journalism being my world, I wanted to do something about it. I just didn't really know what that would look like. And yeah, I'm always like, I don't want spotlight on me, like, look over there.
It's got to be,
it was like
it's got to be kind of like doing an interview
to,
for a profile for the IPA, kind of like that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But then it's kind of like learning from that. Like, after I shared it, so many of my friends, editors, people were like really happy to have that written, especially in Chicago, where like, yes, like, it's a pretty safe biking neighborhood, or sorry, city, but it also we had the most cycling deaths last year in a while. And so it's like, it's safe, but it's not safe. There's so many factors to it. And so it's like, if I felt this and if I had this experience, I'm sure others have this experience too.
Well, and you think about it, the best reporters, in my humble opinion, they find a way not just to talk about the issue, but to put a face and a voice to it. And in this instance, it was you. So
yeah,
as soon as you were able to sort of like get around that paradigm shift of, oh, okay, yeah, I can write about my personal experience, you became the vehicle, pun strangely intended, for that message. And you become an agent of change at that point. So good for you.
Thank you.
Did you and you grew up in New Mexico, right?
I did, yeah.
So I mean, tell me about growing up. Did you dream of being, a full-time journalist at Newsroom X? Where did you have the bug from the time you were a kid?
Basically, yeah. My dad is a journalist as well, and like a freelance translation expert and editor. My parents are from Italy, and so I loved writing from a really young age. At first I wanted to be a pilot, and I was obsessed with planes, and like we would travel to Italy to see my family all the time. So I loved getting on the plane and like would go into the cockpit, and it was really fun. And I was like, maybe I could do this. But then I realized that that would be crazy expensive. 2, I have a very sensitive stomach. 3, I realized that I love to write, and was always writing poetry or like short stories. And then I started working at the Santa Fe New Mexican, which is the local paper there, and they had like a teenage section. And so like started writing for them like when I was a teenager, and realized like this is what I really want to do. And so yes, I just like figured out like what kind of writing world I wanted to fall into.
So here we are, and you're thriving, I think, as much as one can in this gig economy. What, I suppose, for lack of a better way to put it, if you could put aside anything that you anticipated this career being, what do you think? Are you having fun? Is this what you want it to be?
Absolutely. I mean, I think I'm laughing because it's like, it's so hard to kind of like put that into words, because especially like the world we live in right now with the pandemic, and you can't ignore that has literally affected every facet of life. Even though I'm lucky to work from home most of the time and all of that stuff, yeah, I mean, but it's like, even that said, like journalism is even more important now, more than ever. So I mean, of course, it's not what I expected. I don't really like, yes, I did want like a staff position at some place. We always have those like aspirations of working at like, the Atlantic or like New York Times. And like, I think in college that was like very much a thing, but also realizing, like you said, where the industry is going, and the gig economy, like you said, has changed like immensely in the last 3 years. Those goals, like I don't care for them anymore, and they've obviously shifted because I think we have such a rich, at least we in Chicago, like there's such a rich scene here, community, journalism world that I am like so blessed to be a part of. And so, yes, like I'm happy, like obviously it is stressful, and especially with the pandemic, like, you know, we've been doing some kind of like profiles where we're interviewing folks who lost loved ones to the virus. And like, we all know that like this is an emotional toll for us. And kind of like we said earlier, like, let's remember journalists are humans too. And like, we have all of these complex emotions just as anyone else does, which again is why our work is really important. But yeah, I love it.
Just out of curiosity, can you hear my offspring in the background making noise?
Maybe like a smidge.
A smidge. Okay, good. I just want to make sure that they're not completely ruining this. They just got out of school, so I wanted to just gauge how disruptive they're being.
No worries.
I'm so excited for you, and I'm glad that this is feeding your soul. There is one last sort of how-to question that I wanted to ask you that I want to make sure didn't get away from me, because the different publications that you write for, they're all unique in their own ways. Do you ever find yourself needing to sort of change your voice or your tone from publication to publication? And is that another one of these minute to learn, lifetime to master things where you get better with practice?
Absolutely, yeah. Yes, yes. I think like last year was when I did learn a lot about that too. Like no one really teaches that to you in college. You know, I didn't learn about that. Like my professor and I, we touched on it, but we didn't really like have a whole class. I think I have a friend who still goes to Columbia, and he said there was a freelance course there now, but that was not a thing when I was there. And like we said, it's changed so much in just 3 years, but that should have definitely been a thing. And I've definitely had to learn how to change my voice. There are times when I'm like in my head, like, which style is for what publication, and I like feel like I should need to have like a cheat sheet, but it's like it's enough where I write for them enough where like I can easily go back and forth. But styles are different. Like AP style obviously is commonly used, but there are some that don't use it, and so like I've like found that I have gotten better at like letting my personal voice shine through to some publications that allow that, which has been really nice. And it was, like I just taught myself how to do that. And like, I think it also just comes with like just feeling more confident in like my work and my writing. So it was kind of fun. And sometimes I just like laugh about it because I'm always like trying to keep them all kind of like floating, but also like still me.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, it's admirable, and I was so glad that I saw your story pop up in my timeline.
Which one was it?
It was in Facebook, and honestly, as sort of a self-preservation, I haven't scrolled Facebook in some time.
It's okay.
But a couple of days ago, it was popped right at the top of my feed, and I was like, oh my gosh, let's see what she's doing. And it was like, oh, she's freelancing full time, as I am. We need to talk shop. And best of all, I got a chance to showcase what you're doing for the IPA readers and now listeners and viewers. And it really just kind of falls in lockstep with, there have been so many different roads that young talents have taken in Illinois. And yours is a very real and a much more prevalent one now. So these sort of tips and how to, it's completely invaluable, and I can't thank you enough.
Oh, thank you. This made my day. You know, and like I said, it's weird to talk about myself, but it's also like a good like reflective moment to notice like the hard work that I am doing. I think with being so busy, that's part of that reflection tweet or thread, was it just forced me to pause for a minute and think about that, because I think the downside is like I love to be busy, and I'm so used to it now that it is hard sometimes to like take downtime, and like of course like self-care and like mental wellness is always a thing, but yeah, like it's nice to just like reflect on it and think and like kind of do like a progress check on what I've done.
And yeah, remind yourself of the great things you've done. But it's wonderful to hear that you make self-care a priority. And I think that in and of itself is an awesome reminder for everybody. Just do us a favor, in about 11 months or so, don't forget to include this in your 2021 reflection. So,
absolutely, I will. How could I forget?
So tie a string around your finger, put it in your Google Calendar, whatever works for you.
I wrote it in my planner that I keep everything in right here, so I don't forget.
Do you have a physical planner?
I do.
Oh,
I love it.
That warms my crusty old heart that you have a physical planner. That's awesome.
Oh yeah, I would not be, who I am without it. I need to write things down, and I have like a list of all the stories that I'm working on, and obviously like a source list and like pitch ideas. I haven't really been pitching recently, but definitely have to keep on track, while also like it's like being flexible to know when I need to veer off from the plan, especially with the world we live in. Like things are sometimes planned and sometimes they aren't, and you just have to kind of like go with the flow.
It's true. Well, I'm happy to see you're thriving in the flow of the new gig economy. And if nothing else, you point out to me that I don't know, there's a certain amount of camaraderie there. And I think there's a lot of people who are going to watch this and be like, okay, yeah, this can be the new normal. And we can have an awful lot of fun doing it too, because it opens up a world of opportunities.
Absolutely, exactly. Like it is fun. And at the end of the day, it's like you should be doing what you love, and like you said, what you have a passion for. And if that means you have to sacrifice maybe, some money or financial whatever, like that's, to me at least, that's important, and that's what matters. So
that's that's like the most journalistic thing that I've ever heard. So that's great. All right.
That's true.
Well, the children are going to storm the kitchen, and Zoom is going to kick me off of here in a minute. So again, thanks for joining us, and everybody check out the story, the print story, because we're all crusty old journalists at heart, at illinoispress.org, and Twitter, the Facebook. Find Illinois Press all over the place. You can watch this video again and share it with your friends.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. It's great talking to you.
It was good catching up. Let's do this again soon.
Yes, absolutely. Have a great day.
You too. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.